All righty, guys, welcome to Instructor Trainer Class, the ITC, for Open Water Instructor. I'm really excited that you guys are continuing to move forward on this and everything else. Nikki, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Fantastic. She's eating, I'm going to throw her on the bus. She's eating Lucky Charms. I just finished my Lucky Charms. That was the breakfast or the dinner of champions for us today. Tonight, we're going to go over some really key information, something that they go over quite a bit in the instructor trainer course, and that you'll see a lot in the instructor seminar or instructor evaluation, is the Section 7 Open Water Diving Program, certification options as well. In the Open Water Instructor Trainer training sections and course, there are 4 sections that you need to go through. And it would be to your advantage to go through the assistant instructor course as well. Again, that would be sections 1 through 6. But specifically for this ITC, we're becoming sections 7 through 10. We'll also be going through tonight the instructor academic teaching evaluation form, which is paramount to passing the instructor evaluation. You'll be given at least 2 presentations through this. Of those 2 presentations, on each, you need to score a minimum of 36 points on them. There are 2 sections where if you score a 1 or lower, that you fail the entire thing as well. Now, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sections. Each section has 9 total points as well. So, as you might guess, there's 54 points available. Now, the good news is with this, it's pretty straightforward. If you do the basic stuff that I show you through this process, it's pretty hard not to get 36 points. But there's definitely a process and a key press of that. So let's just jump into it. We'll get the academic portion of this well and knock out of section 7. Nikki, you want to unmute because I will be asking lots and lots of questions. So section 7.1, our lesson objectives today that we're going to describe the purpose of the Open Water Diver program. We're going to list 3 reasons why people become open water divers. And we're going to say 3 responsibilities of the open water instructor during training. Now, overall, at the end of this lesson, you're going to definitely be able to understand why people go into diving and what the motivations of your students are going to be. You're going to be able to have a better understanding why people do this and what your responsibility to them is. And the value to this is the obvious, that you pass the open water instructor course and evaluation because you'll be tested on this. But more importantly, as we kind of go through this process, you'll have a better understanding who your students are and what your duty to those students are as I go through and start beginning to create open water divers. So let's just jump right into it. Creating new open water divers. So what are your basic responsibilities to your divers, Ken?
Well, the first and foremost is safety.
Absolutely. That's
So,
huge.
yeah, you got to train them to do it safely, and then it should also be fun. So you want them confident, competent, and safe.
Absolutely. Safety is always paramount. I love that you started with that one as well, to be honest with you. Nikki, what's another responsibility to your students?
I'm drawing a blank. I don't know.
Well, one of the things that's nice with SSI is we have the flexibility rule, right? And part of the flexibility rule is not just we look at the flexibility rule of teaching is that as long as I teach the basic information, I can tailor the course how I like to teach and to my teaching style. But the flexibility rule, for me, is a lot bigger than that. I'm also able to tailor my course to the type of diver that I'm working with. If they are an adult, so I'm going to definitely teach a 16-year-old who has potentially ADD much differently than I would teach a 70-year-old retired professional, which would be very different how I teach a couple that just came in that is 30, in their 30s, getting ready to go on a cruise, right? So we get to tailor it to our students as well. So our responsibility to our students becomes utilizing the flexibility rule to be able to teach and help them understand open water diving, not just through our terms, but through their terms as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Absolutely. Ken, can you come up with another responsibility that you have for your students?
Another responsibility,
Yeah.
to engage and hold their attention.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Nikki, you want to try one more?
Well, the manual says supervision.
Yep. Absolutely. And that's part of our safety as well. So making sure we're supervising them at all times is our top priority in that portion of safety. Absolutely. So supervision is huge. One of the things that is a test question that you need to watch out is, can your students ever be underwater without supervision?
No.
No, never, right? Another portion of your responsibilities to your students is going to be the evaluation, making sure that not only are they safe and you've taught them the way, but you've evaluated those skills in a proper manner that you know that they can become an open water diver who can dive autonomously with an equal or more qualified buddy. And you'll hear those terms a lot through this process. Make sense?
Yep.
Absolutely. So as we kind of start talking about this, what are the students' motivations to come dive with us, to learn, to become divers?
So it's different for everybody. I mean,
The funny thing, that's the test answer as well, is their motivations vary. But give me a couple ideas of who might come to open water class. Who do you think who's our typical student?
Typical students are going to be adults that have some financial stability, and that they're either looking for adventure or they're looking for a change to do something else. I mean, diving is a very unique thing. There aren't a lot of things that you can do in the world that are like scuba diving. So for some people it's challenge, for some people it's new things, for some people it's, they want to start a career in diving.
Absolutely. That's right on the money. So what is the intent, Nikki, of the open water diver program?
Well, our intent should be to create safe, autonomous divers.
Absolutely. That can dive with a equally or more qualified buddy. So, Ken, who can conduct the open water diver program?
Who can conduct the open water diver program?
Uh-huh.
A certified instructor, certified open water instructor.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and pull up our standards and let's take a look at that in the standards and see what the standards have to say about that.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you get to that location, tell me where you went.
I'm actually looking for it on the computer. I've always used my phone.
Left-hand side, about mid-page, you'll see there's SCUBA standards on the actual app.
So is that under the training tab?
Nope, it's on the main page.
Main page. Right. Might not be on the main page. What is it doing here?
But it'll be on the left-hand side on a tab by itself, and I'm just pulling it up on a tabs. Let's see, we'll put this one back, add a stage. There we go. So I go to my on my main page on the left-hand side, downloads, online updates, standards for scuba, extended range, and diving.
Okay, there it came up. General training standards.
Well, this is an easy one. The questions will get harder in the standards, but I want you guys to start getting used to finding things in the standards. Never guess.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. You just have to recognize that some of us don't have like 4 screens like you do.
Fair enough. And if it's easier, you can look it up on your phone as well. That's certainly an option. It's not precluded from this opportunity. Did you find it, Ken?
Yeah, I'm
Perfect. So it's a pretty simple answer for this one. And like I said, I just really what I'm looking for you guys to be able to do is find things in the standards, right? So simple enough as we kind of go through this, we notice really quickly that we go to entry-level programs, open water diver, right? And so minimum instructor rater, an active status open water instructor may conduct an open water diver program. If we want to know what it takes to become an open water status diver, we can certainly go to professional programs, recreational scuba, and scroll down to open water instructor. And that's right here, instructor evaluation. So what does it take to be an open water instructor? The intent, here's the intent, minimum instructor rating to teach the course, candidate prerequisite. Now this is interesting as you kind of go through this. Candidate prerequisites must have passed an instructor trainer course or have completed an instructor crossover program, be an open water diver or higher for at least 6 months prior to starting the instructor evaluation. So you can go through requirements for completion, minimum supervision, to become an open water, pass all the required requirements and evaluations listed in the instructor manual for instructor evaluation, certification upon and go qualifications. And so once you do that, you're able to do this. So as you guys go through this process, start looking through the standards and start having a better understanding of the standards of where do I find something, how do I find it, where would I locate that. The more you do that, the better you get at it, the better you. And I also encourage you strongly is never lean to your own understanding, especially if it's a standards question. Always take it to the standards, and there'll be 3 parts and 3 things to always look at to determine that. The first one's going to be the standards. The second one's going to be the actual book, open water instructor book in this particular case. But if you're doing deep diving, you can go to the deep diving book and it'll clarify what you're required to do, what is required to happen through that to make the certification. And then the final piece is go to the training record, and it'll give you a brief bullet point by bullet point of here's all the things that you're saying that they can do efficiently with or without you, with an equally or more qualified buddy. So as you kind of go through that, understanding how that works and where to find this kind of stuff is imperative. And it's the number one. I was talking to Mike Schechter, and he says this is the number one thing that trips up instructors and causes QMS violations. By far, number one is that the instructor says, this is the way I was taught when I did it, so this is the way I'll teach it to do it. Instead of saying, let's go to the standards and let's see what the book says, the standard says, and what I'm signing off. And so as an instructor, Nikki and Ken, I encourage you strongly, strongly, strongly to go through and make sure that we're always on top of this as well, and that we always kind of understand where do we find things, how do we find things as well. And one of the things you'll find is that these standards change about twice a year. There's some new standards coming out in just a few months. I've had a preview of some of them. One of them, a big one, is Dive Guide professional level is going away. Dive Guide is going to become a specialty program like deep diving or night diving or limited visibility. The first professional level is Dive Master. So that's one big change that's coming. Another big change that's coming before the people that just finished up the ITCs, when they came out of the ITC, they were able to teach nitrox, stress and rescue, dive masters as part of as their automatic you're now an instructor, you can teach nitrox, stress and rescue, boom, boom, right? It's expanding. And by the time you guys get to your instructor evaluation, you will also be able to teach science of diving. And most likely, I heard that this was happening, and I haven't seen documentation on it yet. The science of diving, I have seen the documentation on, but you'll most likely get certified as a deep dive instructor as well, right out of the gate. So as you kind of go through this, you can see really quickly, those are some pretty good size changes, right? As we go through this process, understanding and staying up to date with the standards is the #1 way to avoid QMS violations. So just be aware as you got to go through this process. So now we kind of understand that. For the open water diver program, I'll take the buzzer system from you two. What is the minimum age to take the program?
10.
That is exactly right. Now, as a 10-year-old, Nikki, is there any limitations on that type of diver?
Yes, they can only go to 40 feet, and they have to dive with a certified adult. And I thought that that's also a professional, a dive professional, so dive guide or higher.
Why don't we let's go to the standards and that'd be junior diver certification in the standards. Let's look it up.
Yeah, so students under 15 years will be certified as a junior open water diver and must dive under the direct supervision of a dive professional or with a certified adult in environments equivalent to their training and within their recommended depth limits.
Where'd you find that?
It's at the under certifications for the entry-level program open water diver.
Good job. So it's everything you need is right there. Absolutely. Now, the interesting portion of that, welcome, Brett, is the younger than 15 years. So I think there's times where they could be in standards, have a little bit additional clarity that would make things a little easier. Younger than 15 years, younger than 15 means 14. So that they're 10 to 14. And I don't know why they just couldn't say that. Divers, students between 10 years and 14 years old are a junior diver. Divers 15 years old or older are a full diver, right? So be really careful on how you read things as you start going through the standards, because there are times where it definitely gets tricky, right? Or it's misunderstood. Now, a pro tip for you, if you get into the standards and there's any portion of that point that you're like, what the heck are they trying to tell me? What's going on here? Why is that saying? Or you feel that's somewhat ambiguous, the first thing to do is reach out to either myself and as an instructor trainer. I should have a pretty good understanding of that at this point. An instructor evaluator, Craig at the Creator, once you guys go through your evaluation and know him, he is more than happy to answer questions. Honestly, my go-to is Mike Schechter, who is the director of training for North America. And it's been my experience. I sent him a question this morning about something. And within about 5 minutes, he sent me a full response. Boom. Zero question. If the director of training for North America says that it's this way and provides the documentation to back up his clarification statement, then I think we're probably okay. So I've got it right. So that's my suggestion is if you get to a point where you're like, which it happens more often than you might think, right? Overall, especially when you start getting into more eclectic things as well. So be aware. Brent, just to catch you up, what we're doing is we're going through section 7 of the instructor trainer course.
Okay.
Going through, we're on section 7.1 right now currently. And we're reviewing where to find things in the standards. Once we complete section 7.2, which should go pretty quickly, we're going to go to how to create a presentation and the criteria the secret sauce, as if you will, of the instructor presentation. When you go to the instructor evaluation, you're going to be given 2 presentations that you have to score a 34 or better on, which is not terribly hard, to be truthful with you, as long as you follow the secret sauce. If you follow secret sauce, you should score in the 50s, to be honest with you. It is also 25% of the entire evaluation. 25% is the confined water, 25% is the open water presentations. And so if you get the water skills down, you've got 50% of the instructor evaluation done. And then there's the final examination, which is 25%. So, and you have to pass all 4 sections as well. And by the way, anybody know what the minimum passing grade for your instructor courses is now?
A D.
Well, I was going to say, has it changed? Because I thought once you entered professional status, you had to pass all tests with a 90%.
You do. So you'll be given a 100-question test that you can only miss 9 on. So, and from this point out, if for any instructor course that you take, all your final exams have to be passed with a 90% or better. Good news is there is some final exam questions on this, but I also have a final exam for you guys on this that we'll do paper style. I'm that old that I prefer paper, but I also have several practice tests as well. So we'll do several practice tests where a portion of those questions will be ones from the final exam for the ITC and from the instructor evaluation, and as well. So by the time, hopefully, by the time you guys get to the instructor evaluation, you will have seen every question that is potentially to be asked, and be familiar with it. So I fully expect that everybody will get at least 100%, unless you misread a question, you get a 99 like I do. That's what happened to me in ITS. Is I thought I was one off on my answer key, and I went back and I changed it. So I was like, oh, crap, and I missed one that I knew. I just put the wrong answer. I was mad. So did the same thing in my AIT though, so I got a 99. So I fully expect that you guys will be able to do that overall. Make sense?
Yep.
Perfect. Yep. All righty. So instructors must learn and understand students' motivation, since this affects the students' learning style and their enthusiasm for training. Why do you think that's important, Brent?
Why is it important that they're enthusiastic about learning?
For you to learn their reasons and their enthusiasm behind the course,
so that you can tailor it to them.
Absolutely.
Or help them understand how they learn and put that into your course.
Absolutely. And so I just want to kind of catch you up. And so it's part of the ability to change how you teach, right? The flexibility rule in SSI is huge. And the problem is a lot of instructors, as they start looking at the flexibility rule, they always think it's, well, I get to be flexible on how I teach the material, as long as I teach the basics of the material. But I think there's a lot of people that miss the idea that I can also tailor how I teach to my students as well, because I want them to enjoy this. How I create my class is going to be very different for Caleb than it would be for Nikki. And it's going to be very different for my son Brandon, or for a 16-year-old kid. So we need to make sure we're tailoring so that they're staying excited. Our job as instructors really is to create enthusiasm, create a safe environment for them to learn, ensure that they understand these skills as well, and make sure that they become lifelong divers. And we'll get into the lifelong divers as we start getting into section 10, which is the business of diving, which is huge. So overall, what are the completion requirements for the open water program? Whoever has that, go ahead and
for a student taking open water, or for us?
For a student taking open water.
The classroom, the online, the skills in the pool, and then demonstrating they can do it in open water.
Okay, let's go to the standards and let's take a look to see what the standards has to say for that. Brent, where would you find that in the standards?
I don't know. I can't see anything without my glasses. That's my problem right now. I'm prepared.
Vicki, do you want to show us the standards where you might find that? Or tell us?
So I'm trying to open the standards in a different place. But I would go back to the same training standards entry-level program and then into the requirements for completion. So all academic sessions and assessments outlined in the instructor manual for the open water diver, completing the final exam, all pool/confined water sessions and skills evaluations as outlined on the instructor manual for the open water diver, completed the student water fitness evaluation as outlined in the general training standards, and that must be completed before they can do any open water training dives, and then completed at least 4 open water training dives on SCUBA, and all of the skills outlined in the instructor manual for open water diver.
Okay, there you go. Now, completing the final exam, does that have to be a paper test?
It should be online now.
I was going to say they just changed it so it's an online test, but I would imagine that it does not have to be a paper test.
No, that's exactly right. It does not have to be a paper test. Now, let me just preface it or add to that you can decide if you want to test your students' knowledge by giving them a paper test. For me, as an open water instructor, I will still be administering paper tests because I'd like to know where my students are lacking understanding and what things I missed. And for me, the online portion tends to get a little muddled, and they can go through it and I don't know what they missed and what they didn't miss. So for me, I still would like to do paper tests, but you're not required to. If you feel that you've covered the information and your students understand the information on the student training record, now there's a place that certifies I took it online and I did it by myself and I used my honor and not my mother to take the test. So it doesn't say anything about your mother, but I throw that out there because I had a student that did use his mother for everything but the final. So as you kind of go through that, start thinking about these kind of things. And that's yet another change to standards. And one of the reasons, Brent, one of the things I mentioned earlier, I was talking to Mike Schechter, Director of Training for North America. He said the number one reason instructors get QMS violation, quality management system violations, is they teach the way they were taught, not by the standards. So I strongly encourage you guys, and you'll hear me say this a lot, always, for every course, go to the standards and make sure that you're current on the standards. Always. It'll refer back to the instructor manual for that course you're teaching, and read what you're expected to do. And then finally, look at the training record, because in the end, when you sign that training record, you're saying they can do all these things autonomously with an equal or more qualified buddy. So if they die doing an air sharing ascent, they're going to come back and say, did you teach them that? Did they know how to do that? And, hopefully you, and good conscience, can say, yes, I did it. We did it together, and we did the required amount of times. So as you kind of go through this, it's, we're taking other people's lives into our hand, not just now, but into the future. I remember a number of years ago that there was a diver death, and it was several years previous. But Dan came to Brent and Ashley. This has probably been 4 years ago. The diver had been certified 6 years prior to that as well. And they went back to him, and here's all the stuff he did, and here's the instructor, and we did it. So they came back and asked. So it does happen apparently overall. Does it make sense?
Yep.
Perfect. Well, great. So what we covered today on this particular section is we described the purpose of the Open Water Diver program. Right? We gave 3 reasons why students would want to start an open water program, and we gave 3 responsibilities of the open water diver instructor. Now, again, you should have a better understanding what the reasons why people do open water at this point, and have a good understanding of that, as well as what the purpose of this program is. And you should, at this point, have at least 3 clear responsibilities of that open water instructor. Again, the value to you guys on this overall is understanding the rules of engagement with your class, and who is in your class, who you're working with and working for, if you will, helps you be a better instructor and helps better prepare you as well as prepare them for the environment that they're going to be within. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Good.
Perfect.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. What I'd like to do is I'm going to jump into out of this one for just a little bit, and let's jump into the academic evaluation, and then we'll come back and we'll do 7.2 because these get pretty dry pretty quick. So let's see. Remove. Stop share. Reshare. So the open water presentation is huge. Again, it's 25%. You're going to be given 2 topics during your instructor evaluation, and good, bad, or indifferent. I will give you guys 8 total topics throughout our time together to present. Of those, I need to see at least a 34 on 6 varied topics. And they'll be of my choosing, but I'll make them pertinent to potentially things that you may or may not get during your open water evaluation. So has everybody seen the academic evaluation form before?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Perfect. Now I encourage you strongly, download this, print it off, and print off the evaluation with criteria. So as we kind of look through this, there's 7 additional pages to the criteria. The good news is it's really simple. As you guys get ready to create a presentation, the very secret is one, if it were me, I would always use PowerPoint or Google presentation sheets, something like that, because it makes it very, very simple. The second piece of that, if I were you guys, is I would create a blank presentation with all the key points pre-loaded into the presentation. And what I can do is I can actually show you what that may or may not look like. Let's give me a second here, and I'll pull up an actual one I use overall. Google Sheets. This is my base presentation, and I've even titled it "Base for Presentations." As we go through this, I've accidentally saved it with other information on it, but all I have to do is take this picture out. I've got a title page, and then we start into, I've got the objectives page, a values page, and a main points page. Now, do I have to make these up on my own, or is there a resource possibly for being able to find these exact statements from SSI?
Should be on here. I'm looking for it. Training.
Well, most of the time when you go to the open water or any of the different classes that you could take with SSI, at each portion of the homework, I guess, of the student read, they have value and objectives as to what you're supposed to be learning in that section.
Perfect. Well, let's push that out and prove it a little bit. So let's view the nitrox course, for example. Give it a second here. And let's just find section 1, objectives. Boom. For section 1, there's our objectives. After completing this section, you will be able to state the definition, describe the benefits, and list the limitations. Here's everything we need to know, and we need to continue in, and we'll find everything we'll need to know in the instructor manual. So I'm not guessing on this. I'm actually taking this straight from the book. Here's my objectives. There will be a value statement in the instructor manual. There'll also be a main points. We're going to cover this, this, and this. So as we're going to go through this, we're going to also talk about some key points of this as well. From this point, SSI wants us to create what they call as active learning session. Anybody want to tell me what maybe be the difference between a proctored session and maybe an active learning session?
So proctored session will be kind of like what we're in right now, without the
I would disagree. I would say that a proctored learning session is more like a lecture style, right? Where you have somebody that's doing a lot of talking, but then an active learning session is more similar to what this is, that you're asking us questions, you're causing us to think and making us participate and assessing knowledge as you continue through the class.
Absolutely. And so there's 7 basic ways that we do proctored sessions, and we'll get into those a little bit later on in our education and as we move through this process. But things like think, pair, share, surveys. How many people think that this is a—
Wait a minute. I got a question. You're saying that those are proctored, or are you saying that those are active learning sessions?
Those are active. Active learning sessions are sessions in which I create an environment for the students to come up and have to think their way through a situation and provide an answer back. I don't simply just say, okay, what's the color of this? It's blue. Instead, it's, hey guys, let's talk about this. What is this? What do we use it for? Why is it there? Who thinks that this is my glasses case? Show of hands, right? Whatever. Think, pair, share, small group discussions, anything like that, where I, instead of just giving you the answer, I ask you a question and try to draw their answer out of you instead and get you to think your way through the situation. So SSI is really pushing hard, and they want us as instructors to become active learning experts. They want us to be able to draw that information out of our students. Exactly. Ask questions, because if I ask questions, Brent, do I have a better understanding of where you're at?
Yeah.
Absolutely. You've taught Sunday school before, right?
No.
No? Which are the most fun Sunday school classes you've taught? Where you stand up in front of the class and you put everything on the board, you tell them everything and they say 3 things? Or you ask questions to the portion, you say, hey, look this up and tell me what you think it is.
I just go, let's read.
Let's read. Okay,
Yeah.
you read page 1, you read page.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
pretty much go around and I go, okay, we're done.
I bet you that I know exactly that's how you do this. But overall, our goal is to pull that information out of the students, because I'll know where my students are more clearly, but the retention value of you coming up with the answer versus me coming up with the answer is substantially different, right? So as we go through that, our goal is to create an environment where the students are able to learn. So as you see through all my presentation, I stop a lot of times, and I make the class question, break into small groups, share 2 things you'd like to learn from this. Show me in the standards what programs are available to students for the Advanced Adventure program. Continue education. Is it real world examples for me of how it applied to me? Some equipment sales. Talking about that. Con Ed is another huge one that they're going to talk about. But as you can see, this is my base presentation. I've gone through very clearly, and I've made key points for me to be able to throw information in. More questions, more information, basic information, and continuing safe diving practices thrown in there to make sure I hit something about that. More real world stories about the dive, how to upgrade, class participation, and utilizing things, and then finally more questions, and then main points, objectives, and value. So that's what I do, is I use a base presentation that I'm able to go back in and use. So if we start with this and we start with that, we're able to say, okay, the evaluation form. The first section is the introduction. Define the objective in measurable terms. And measurable terms says at the end of this, you'll be able to do X, Y, Z. And it's if you say in your presentation to Craig, for example, the objective of today's lesson in measurable terms is at the end of this, you'll be able to discuss and describe how to become an open water instructor. You'll be able to tell me what the 3 types of open water divers are, and so on and so on. The next piece of that is explain the value of the topic. If it were me, I would make 1 slide for each one of these as well. And I would put on there objectives, value, and overview. Here's what we're going to talk about. So Ken, why do you think it's important that we have a value explained at the beginning of every course?
Well, a lot of times when we take classes, we know we have to do it, But knowing the why and the specifics of why it's important and what benefits are going to be helps get the student more engaged with the coursework as opposed to just kind of glossing over it.
Absolutely. I think for a lot of adult learners, we don't want to be bogged down with BS information unless it's pertinent to how I'm going to get in the water, how I'm going to be safe in the water, how I'm going to enjoy my time in the water. I just don't care, right? We want to know how this relates to us overall. And so if we can get the value and why it's important to each one of our students, we have a better chance of them actually paying attention to what we're providing for them and helping them through that process. Nikki, at the beginning of a presentation, why do you think we want to give them the main points? Why is that important?
Because it gives them what you're going to talk about. It's like the same thing with every PowerPoint presentation that we all sit through for various reasons. If you've given the main points and you understand what you're going to cover and what you want to pay attention to.
Absolutely. So let's go down and out of curiosity, let's find out what it takes to get a good score in each one of those. So objective, the candidate should be able to state the objectives that are directly related to their specific topic using measurable terminology. What you guys are looking for is the candidate will clearly state in measurable terms all the objectives related to the topic. Now that gets tricky. If you're given a presentation on the signs of stress, for example, in stress and rescue, the book will give 3 objectives that you need to make sure that are pertinent to that class. Can you, for your presentation purposes, could you skip, Brent, one of those objectives from the book?
Probably not.
No. In fact,
Clearly stated in measurable terms, all objectives.
exactly. Now they're not. I need to be very clear on this, and I want to make sure we understand this. Is that these are not your objectives; these are SSI's teaching objectives. So as you look at those objectives, when it says all measurable, it's the SSI instructor's objectives of this is what we're trying to accomplish. So as long as you think about it like that, it's good to go. The value of the topic, the candidate should state a clear need to know, as well as how this information will be relevant during the student's training or practical diving experience. So candidates will state a clear need to know, as well as how this information will be applicable during the student's training or practical experience. Here's where you're actually going to use it. You need to know how to use a regulator, because you go in the water and you don't put that regulator in your mouth, you're gonna die, dude. And by the way, the D term is one term that we really avoid in open water classes. You don't get to say the D term until you get into tech diving. Then you can start saying die. But at this point, I encourage you guys to avoid the D word. It's really frowned upon. But we want to make sure, how am I going to use this? Why do I want to know this? And where? And the practical experience, right? And then finally, the overview of main points, just like Nikki talked about, the candidate should outline all the main points so that the students understand what we're going to go through today. We have all sat through 10 billion freaking PowerPoint presentations. It is so nice to know, okay, we've got 3 things we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about, if we're talking about cars, we're going to talk about the combustion engine, the tires, and the doors. So I know that if we've talked about the combustion engine and we talked about the tires, once we get to the doors, sweet, I'm on the last subject. Oh my goodness, and I don't have to listen to this guy talk anymore, right? So here's the other key piece of this, is that you need to provide the main points in a clear and logical sequence as outlined in the instructor manual. So the good news is everything you need is already in the manual for whatever you're teaching. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, and I strongly, strongly discourage you from trying to reinvent the wheel. But as you go through this process, make sure you keep these clear and separated. I encourage making one slide, and if you're using paper, and you're using that as your note piece for the to keep the class on topic, make one page for each one of these. Define the objective here in measurable terms. At the end of this, we'll be able to do X. The reason you want to learn this on the next page is because of this. And I'm going to teach you the reasons for this in this order. This is what I'm going to talk about. A, B, and C. Boom, boom, boom. The good news is those are super easy. Now, anybody remember what the minimum score for the open water instructor presentations are?
No.
Yes. If you scroll down to the bottom of that, to pass at an ITC level, which is what we're doing, is 36.
That's exactly right. So you guys need to score a 36 or better. So let's do some addition in our if you got a notepad and paper. If you get these three right here, you're trying to get 36 points, right? This is 9 points. And in my opinion, these are super easy 9 points. It's in the instructor manual. Make a slide for each. Boom, boom, boom. 9 points. So as we think about that, that means we only got 27 points left to score through this process. So let's go to the next section. Knowledge and skills, practical application of knowledge. Are you guys open water divers?
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. So overall, you've been diving. Everybody in this class has substantial experience. So practical application of knowledge, I would think at this point, you should be able to skim the manual and be able to give me some basic practical application of knowledge of what we're talking about. Ken, have you ever dove nitrox?
Yep.
Do you like driving nitrox?
That's all I dive.
Do you understand why you dive nitrox?
Yes.
Bam. This should be teaching a nitrox class. It should be pretty easy for you to talk about your knowledge, skills, and application of the knowledge. Now, this is a big one, and this is one that gets missed a lot. These next two sections get missed a lot. So the next one is equipment sales, counseling, and motivate to purchase. You're going to see this a lot through SSI. Now, there's two ways you can look at this. And I feel like the difference in the two ways is the heart of which you approach it. The heart of which I approach equipment sales, counseling, and motivate to purchase is, hey, I notice that we're all getting ready to get divers. I would encourage you looking at a nice BC, because if you have your own BC, it's like this one that I'm wearing, this ST35, it's comfortable. I know where everything is. I'm able to dive more easily with this, more safely, because I know where all the stuff is. I know it fits me, it's mine, da, da, da. So we want to make sure we're giving a counseling. Here's what we can do and a reason to purchase this. The reason is because it'll help you dive more safely, more comfortable. And we coach something specific, this ST35 from Hollis, right? I think it's great. I just want you to be a safe diver. Mike Schechter, I pick on him a lot, North American Training Director, said this at my ITS. You know what the difference between an open water instructor who tries to sell gear and an open water instructor who doesn't sell gear?
One's employed and one's not.
Exactly. So there's multiple reasons why, right, to sell gear. We want the students to make this a lifelong purchase. Guys, who is Idaho Dive Pirates' #1 competitor?
The online stores.
Ken, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd say the online stores.
Mickey, who's the competitor for Idaho Dive Pirates?
All of the other adventurous activities that we can be out doing: paddleboarding, rock climbing, fishing, hiking, hunting, camping.
Yeah, REI, Sportsman's, Big Owls, Dick's Sporting Goods. Those are our competition, not Inland Scuba, not H&H in Pocatello. Absolutely not, and not Dive Right in Chicago. There's a lot easier things, and we've lost plenty of students, and we all participate in those other activities, but none of us can afford to be advanced rock climbers, skydivers, scuba divers. We just don't have the time, right, from that investment. But the funds that it costs to be a part of all these different gets thin. We're not independently wealthy. So absolutely, other sports are our #1 competitor. Our job is to get them invested into scuba diving. So the more we can think about that, and the easiest way to do that, Brent, did you notice after you bought all your gear, did you dive more or less?
I just keep buying gear is the problem.
But that first initial purchase.
Honestly, right? Since I've bought so much gear, And then lately, it's been more of a time thing than anything. If I don't have the time, I don't go diving.
Absolutely. But if you didn't have 40 grand in gear sitting in your house, or 50 grand or whatever it is, would it be easy to get sucked away into a different sport?
Maybe.
Yeah. And that's the thing we look at is generally when you put that vested interest into something, you want to get the return on that investment, right? And so that's why we try and put gear in their hands, is we want them to get invested into diving. The good news is if they buy stuff from Dive Right and Scuba, they still live in Idaho Falls. They're still going to need air fills. They're still going to need a new mouthpiece once in a while. They're still going to need. And we still have the chance. We haven't lost them. They're still a customer. But if they go hardcore into free solo climbing, and that's their thing, then we have less chance of regaining them as a customer. They're going to stick with their herd, right? So
Right.
Make sure that we go through that, and we're big on that. The other piece of this as well is, one of the things I want you guys to start seeing, anytime on an evaluation form you see an or, I want you to mentally cross that out, and I want you to say and. You'll get credit for it either way, but two things happen. One, evaluators sometimes miss promoted continuing education or local dive or when they sometimes miss something, right? And sometimes you guys will not take the time to give me a clear way to get to continuing education or a clear path to local dive travel. If you hit both and you hit that and instead of an or, you've got a better chance of making sure you score a perfect score in there. So this is, in my opinion, this is another easy 9 points. So if we score another 9 points in here, that gives us 18 points total. And the good news is now all we need to score is 18 more points. In my opinion, this is a super easy one. But let's go look at what this says in terms of Diver Diamond. Knowledge, skill, and practical application. To get a 3 in this area, candidate gave practical examples that were specifically related to the main points and skills the students will be using during their training or practical diving experience. So, for example, if I were teaching open water class and talking only about, hey, here's my practical application. I went out and did this trimix dive. It was amazing, and we used a Hollis K2 as our, and then we were using 3 Faber tanks, and I was using Hollis F1 fins. We're not giving something that's relative to what our students at their relative level. So we need to make sure that practical diving guides were specifically related to the main points and the skills the students use during their training. So be very careful on that. It's easy to move down to a 2 in this one. Can it give practical examples related to the main points, but at least one was negative? That's that die sentence, or inappropriate for the student's training level. So your goal is the candidate should use real diving examples to relate to the main points of the topic and skills the students will use during their training. And so we want to make sure if we're talking overall in nitrox class, for example, well, I like nitrox when I go out to dive Bon Air because and we do these 70-foot, 60-foot dives. I feel so much better after the dive because I'm more energized and I know that I'm safer because I'm using nitrox. In fact, we were in Bon Air last month, and I noticed that instead of passing out on the couch afterwards, after the dives, I was able to have plenty of right? We gave something practical example to that, to their level and what we're trying to get through to them as well. Equipment sales, counseling, and motivation to purchase. The candidate should show students why equipment ownership is vital to their long-term diving commitment and how ownership increases their comfort and confidence. Now, here's where it gets tricky. Candidate gave specific examples of equipment. Remember I talked about, I used my ST35, right? Use that was related to the topic and delivered a clear value and motivation to purchase. So in this, there's a little bit of salesmanship involved. There's a specific, if I'm talking, we're going off-roading, I'm going to definitely talk about buying a Jeep Rubicon, right? And I love the Jeep Rubicon because it can get over everything. I can go out to Moab and da-da-da. And the value to you is if you have a Jeep Rubicon, you'll be able to do these really cool off-road courses that I'm teaching you and through that process. So as you kind of think about that, make sure it's specific equipment, not just a general. We don't, one of the places I see a lot of candidates fail in this is they'll say, and I really love to make sure I have a jacket BC or a good BC that's just mine. Is that specific?
No.
No, we want to talk. I like the Rogue. I like the Ziegel, whatever it is, right? The Ziegel Ranger. I like, and here's why. And here's how it will benefit you, right? So we want to make sure we're clear and concise on that. And then finally, promoted continuing education and local dive travel. On Ed is one of the easiest ones to push. Last year, in teaching, let's see, I'm going to put us back on group. So last year in teaching, I taught 65, 66 open water classes. I did 250 certifications last year. So overall, I'm literally at a 4-to-1 ratio of continuing education to open water. Now, how does that benefit the shop, Ken?
Well, that's how the doors stay open. I mean, you've got more customers, you got people buying stuff, you got people going on trips. If you're not getting the divers trained, you're not making the sales and you're not paying the rent.
Absolutely. And so if we get them in for the open water class, slam, bam, thank you, ma'am, and then we don't communicate and continue that process of bringing the back in, they're less likely to be a fully engaged diver. They're less likely to purchase gear. The more classes they take, the more likelihood they are to purchase gear, to go on trips with us as well. So we need to make sure we're always promoting Con Ed and I start Con Ed in open water. It's got to start there. And it goes to every single class that I teach to make sure that we're saying, okay, hey, where's your dive journey look like and where do you want to go? You want to do wrecks? Great. We teach advanced wreck diving here, which is amazing. You're going to love diving wrecks. Oh, cool. You're thinking about cold water diving? We teach dry suit and ice diving. So you find something appropriate to your class or where they want to go, right? In my first open water slide, I actually made it where do you want your dive journey to go? And here's the things that you can do. Did you know we teach navigation or night or deep or nitro? And I talk to them about all this, right, to make sure they get an understanding. So make sure we're always prompting Con Ed. Now, here's where it gets tricky. You always have to make sure you prompt that Con Ed, that's something specific that is a natural progression from the class you're teaching to the next class. So, for example, if I'm teaching open water diving, is it appropriate for me to talk about trimix?
No.
I just like to pick on that. It's an easy one. Or ice diving, right? Is open water ice diving a realistic expectation?
Yeah, but it's kind of a stretch.
Absolutely. Yeah. But what would be a good, in open water class, what would be a good next step for a diver?
For some cases, it depends on the region. Like here, altitude diving and nitrox would be.
Absolutely.
Or currents, rivers or currents.
Yeah.
Rivers and currents could be a good one.
Night limited viz.
Night limited viz. Per buoyancy is an easy. Nitrox is the #1 class that the Idaho Dive Pirate sells, and probably every instructor sells. It's the easiest one, and if you go to any instructor, of all the special they've taught, if they're unless they're specialty and they moved on to some sort of technical diving or some sort of specific area in diving, I'd be willing to bet that they have more nitrox certifications under their belt than any other specialty that they teach. I know that's the way it is for Brett. I've seen his cert stats, and I know that's how it is for me. Of all my specialties that I've taught more nitrox than any other specialty. So it's an easy one right out of open water. But you're right. Night limited viz, deep, navigation. Those are slam dunk courses. Perfect buoyancy is another slam dunk course, especially if you have some divers that are a little timid, they get through open water, but they're, so we work through that. If I'm in nitrox, and I'm starting to talk about equipment, what's an appropriate piece of equipment that I can talk about during nitrox?
Well, an oxygen analyzer.
What can we sell that would be an appropriate sale?
Well, I guess making sure you have like a reg set that would be rated for the oxygen that you're using or the blend that you're using.
Absolutely. So a reg set is a nice, easy one. What else, Ken? What's something else that would be really appropriate to in terms of sales and equipment counseling during a nitrox class?
Tanks,
Thanks.
nitrox tanks.
Brent, what do you think?
Computers.
There you go. Dive computer, right? Is any of this really easy without a dive computer?
Without one, no, it's not easy.
No, so that's a really regulators and computers are the easiest ones to push in to talk about during nitrox class. Every diver should have their own dive computer, and it makes it a tremendous amount easier to have if you have your own dive computer. So I want you guys, as you start thinking about these classes, think about what it's very much like dinner, right? If I'm sitting down with a steak, Jello is probably not the first thing I think as a side item with a steak, right? Maybe for dessert, but not as a side item. Is I'm sitting at a Steak and Shop restaurant downtown or whatever it is, and they're offering me sides. What's an appropriate side, right? It's probably not caviar, so it's probably potatoes or green beans or vegetable, right? And so same thing with these courses. You always want to think as you go through, what's an appropriate side item that would that would pair well with this course. So thinking about that. And then it's really easy at that point when we should to pair that up with continuing education. So if I'm talking nitrox during an open water class, I can also be talking regulators, and I can continue that conversation into nitrox. How about night diving? What's a really easy upsell, or not upsell, but equipment motivation and purchase for night diving class?
Flashlight.
Flashlight. Yeah, that's kind of a no-brainer, right? And so I can pair that up. Hey, you're thinking about night dive, and we're talking about because all the cool stuff comes out at night. Now, as an open water diver, you guys want to think flashlight, and you can pair that really easily into night diving, right? So as you kind of go through this, think about your pairings and where you're going and what you can bring up that's appropriate. And a lot of times you can get twofers out of this, right? You teach them open water, and then you take them to night dive. You already talked about flashlight. Now we're talking even more about flashlight. Guys, you have to have your flashlight, right? So as you think about that, and then you move it straight into, okay, now I've taught you this class. Where do you want to use this? Because I promise you, Robbery is probably not the first place you thought in this world that you wanted to go diving, right? It's probably somewhere warm, tropical, with pretty colored fish, right? All the fish in Robbery are the same damn color, right? They're green and gold. Yeah, they're green and gold. It's not that exciting. But if we go to the Caribbean, they're red and blue and orange and purple and pink, all right? So we can move straight out of that equipment sales, motivation purchase, right into Con Ed. And then where are we going to use that Con Ed? Local dive travel. So the evaluation form on that says the candidate should introduce students to continuing education programs and, they say or, I say and, local dive travel, and create value that continuing education and local dive travel will increase their knowledge and enjoyment. So again, a 3 in that. Candidate introduced and created value for a specific continuing education program and promoted local dive travel opportunities and identified a clear pathway to continue their education and experience. It's vital. I can't speak highly enough to that. You got to not only we're talking about. You should definitely think about nitrox. Instead, I might pair that differently. How would I rephrase that? Instead of you should think about nitrox to create a clear pathway, Ken. How would I create a clear pathway in my open water to nitrox?
Open water to nitrox. Just talk to them about excuse me, the different dives you can do that would require nitrox, or you would benefit from nitrox, like a redfish dive or something like that.
Okay, that's part of it. Brent, what's another clear pathway to nitrox from open water?
You know, when you get done in the pool and you're wiped out, the nitrox would help. Even though it's the pool, my dad at 82, we went spend all day in the pool, and he Slept really well that night. If he'd been on nitrox, he probably wouldn't have been so wiped out.
Okay. The experience of it. Nikki, what do you think? What's a clear pathway to get in from open water to nitrox?
Well, so especially particularly on the night when you teach like that the dive tables or go over dive tables and things, do you want safer dives? Do you want shorter surface intervals? Do you want potentially longer dives? Then take nitrox.
Okay. I hear a lot of why, but a clear pathway, what we're really looking for is, okay, we can sign you up for this now, and we're teaching that class on Thursday. So give them the not only the what, but the when. When is how do I get from here to there? Well, on Thursday night, I come to Idaho Dive Pirates, and I'll be here for 2.5, 3 hours. So make sure you talk about the when and the how I get involved with this as well. So I get involved with this by signing up for the class, and I take it on Thursday night at 7 o'clock, whatever it is, right? And there's a special with this class.
Then similar to Con Ed or for like gear sales and things, or even for like travel opportunities, you're being specific, right? Like it's not enough to talk about, hey, going to Roatan someday in the future, but the dive shop is their next trip to Roatan is in November. Sign up to go with us. So you have to be specific about what you're asking them to do.
Absolutely. The easiest way to get somebody to do something is to give them a clear, present way. To get you in this car today, we just need to go inside and sign these papers. Clear, present. To get this windshield done, you need to show up at my shop. I'm not coming to you, dude. You got to come. You got to come here, pull in, and it'll cost you, $699, whatever it is, right? You got to give them a clear. Yeah, we can get that done for you someday. You got to get them. We can get that done for you on Thursday at 9 a.m. And you come to my shop located at, right? So we make a very clear path for them, and that's what they're looking for. In my mind, that's a super easy one to get through, as long as you constantly make sure you're reading what's required. So getting through that is pretty simple. Another 9 points, so that's 18 points total. I'm going to skip to the end because here's where it gets super easy. Not to the end, but almost the end. Restated the objectives, restated the main points, and restated the value. Make sure you do it in this order, by the way. It just makes it easier for me to evaluate you. There's another 9 easy points. All you need to do is take the first 3 slides that you made, transfer them to the very end of your presentation, and change the tense. Today, we did, our main points were, today our objective was, and today the value to you was, 9 points right there, easy peasy. This the first 3 slides restated with a change of tense only. So if we do that, we only have 9 points left to get to our 36 points. Pretty easy stuff. So I like to kind of throw that in just to show you how really easy this is. Now, Ken, this is going to be super easy for you. The next section is knowledge and understanding, safe and accurate information on the topic. What do you think? What do you think that entails?
So are you talking about the last one on?
In section 3 of the evaluation, knowledge and understanding, providing a safe and accurate information on the topic. What does that mean to you?
That means that you've got to focus on safety, do it safely, and keep it focused on what's important for the student to learn and understand.
Absolutely. So how would you score me without looking at the criteria yet? If we're talking nitrox, and I told all the students they could go to a 1.9 partial pressure.
Yeah, so that would be a 1.
I would probably score you as a 0.
0.
That's not safe, and it's definitely not accurate. Absolutely. So making sure that we're on topic, and Brent, what's the easiest way to make sure we provide our students with accurate information on the topic?
Stick to the book.
Yeah, just read the book. It's all there. Again, guys, certainly we have that ability to have the flexibility rule to teach your own style. Just take the information. I'm a big believer. Why reinvent the wheel? It's already been invented. All we're trying to do is add sparkles to it. maybe add some rubber to it so it's a little more comfortable. But we don't have to reinvent it. It's round. It works like this. Don't run through potholes at 95 miles an hour, right? It's pretty basic stuff. Nikki, what do you think when we say completed information in a logical sequence? What would be an example of not a logical sequence for a class that you've taken or been a part of?
Like related to scuba diving?
Yeah, pick a class. Give me an idea of what would be not in a logical sequence.
Well, I think most conversations, right? Like if you think about them, and I know that's not necessarily a teaching example, but part of the reason why I think SSI asks us to put together our main points and objectives and stating the value is that it gives you an outline as to what to follow, right? So if you think about pretty much like any conversation that we have throughout the day, a lot of times those wander and meander and you have squirrel conversations of, hey, this doesn't relate, but this made me think of this, that then made me think of that think of this. But if you stick to the presentation and you stick to your main objectives and the main points and objectives, then it's presented in that logical sequence.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely we'd want to talk about how to use the mask first, for example, before we started talking about how to use the regulator. Would make sense? How to do basic skills. We'd want to teach mask 1 before we taught mask 3, right? Do things in a logical sequence that makes sense, that one skill builds upon the other. Without the previous skill, the next skill becomes more difficult. So that's kind of how I think about it. Is I build my information in a sequence that if I didn't teach the first part of it, the second part of it makes no sense. And then simply enough, follow the instructor manual, and that makes it a lot easier. And then finally, delivered an environmental or safe diving practice message. And again, when I say or, I want you guys to always think and. It will make your life easier. So, Ken, what's an easy to deliver environmental message we can throw into just about every class?
Water conditions. Talking about when you say environmental, you're talking about like the classroom or the water?
Environmental, I talk about like Greenpeace. Think Greenpeace. Environment and saving the world, less emissions, things like that.
If we're incorporating that in a new class, we talk about perfect buoyancy, so you're not smashing up the bottom and breaking up the reefs and destroying the natural environment.
It's perfect. How about you?
Trash as you go.
I'm sorry, say again.
Picking up trash as you go. No, don't leave your stuff.
Absolutely, Nikki. What's another environmental message we can talk about?
Well, I really like that Brett and Ashley have brought in the sea to stream for sunscreen, right? Especially when we're traveling, we need to be mindful as to the chemicals that we're putting on our body that then cause coral bleaching.
There you go. That's another great one. All of those are easy to throw in to any class, and they get you that automatic 3 points right there. Delivered an environmental practice message. How about safe diving? Ken, you hit one really easy one. Can you think of another safe diving practice message that you can add to any class?
Well, yeah, you could talk about diving within your knowledge base and your limitations, and then you could set to talk about going into future classes.
Absolutely, diving within your abilities. Brent, what do you think? What's an easy safe diving practice message that you could throw into just about every class?
Know your equipment.
Absolutely, that's an easy one, right?
Yeah.
Practice and check your equipment before you dive, before you go on your trip, while you're on your trip. Yeah, know your equipment. Nikki, how about you? What's an easy to go safe diving message that you can throw into just about any class?
Well, one of the things that we talk about, and even within the independent diving or diver, right, is that or not to dive alone, that you're supposed to be with your buddy, and how close is appropriate to, consider that you're actually diving with a buddy that could help rescue you if something went wrong.
Absolutely. There's a lot of them. There's tons of them out there. An easy one to throw in is now when you guys go out to do this dive, make sure you guys are planning your dives and diving your plans. Is that a safe diving message?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So overall, as you guys saw, there's a ton of them out there. As you're looking at this section, remember, ands or ors, turn those into ors, and you'll make sure to get a good score in that one. So let's go look at knowledge and understanding, though, to see what SSI has to say about it. SSI says that under safe and accurate message on the topic, the candidate should demonstrate a dive professional level of knowledge and state accurate and safe information, and demonstrate extensive knowledge while providing accurate and safe information. Now, to get a 2 in that, demonstrated sufficient knowledge related to topic, but stated some inaccurate but not dangerous information. That's usually where I see people kind of fall in, is they'll throw something that's slightly inaccurate, and what it usually is because they're nervous. And that's usually what I've seen is somebody gets nervous and they prattle on about something and they misspeak something simple, right? Instead of saying the on nitrox we need to stay at 1.4, and they say 4.1 or something, right? They just get nervous. So as we got to go through that, just make sure to slow down, take your time. Remember, you're teaching to a bunch of people that already know this. All you got to do is just cover the information accurately out of the manual. Logical sequence is a really easy one. Candidates should cover all information in a logical sequence as outlined in instructor manual. Candidate adequately covered all the information in a logical sequence as outlined. And simply enough, the easiest way to measure that, and how I measure that for myself and in evaluations, is if I say something, is it something that's building on a previous statement? And will they understand it without the previous statement? As they got to go through it. So everything is like Legos. They need to build upon each other. So I need to make sure that if I'm going into a topic, was it appropriate to the previous statement? Right? We're building this. First, we put up the framework with the 2x4s, and then from that point we put on the siding, and then from that point we do the electrical, we do the and then we put the drywall on, and we build it in, but we can't put the drywall unless we framed the house, right? We can't put the electrical in unless we have framing up. We don't want to put the electrical on after the drywall. So everything has to be built a lot like a house in a logical and consistent manner. And that's how I measure myself: is will this statement stand by itself? And then can I build upon the statement to go to the next point? So think about building things up. Delivered an environmental and safe diving practice message. Candidate gave an environmental or safe diving message that was appropriate to the scope of the topic. The good news is if you, with the statements that you guys gave, you can throw those into just about every single class that you're going to talk about, that you're going to teach. Open water, easy. Nitrox, easy. I mean, we talked dive your plan your dive. Nitrox. Make sure you know your equipment. Nitrox, right? And you kind of go through this process. Beach cleanups before we get out for a nitrox dive. We're gonna dive. We're gonna clean up the beach, or as we're diving our nitrox, we want to make sure we're picking up trash as we go along. Hey, in this nitrox dive, you're going to be seeing a lot of cool stuff. If you're staying down a lot longer, you can pick up trash as you go along. So those were all great examples. Just remember, and I'm going to keep stating this over and over again. Ors are actually ands, so do both overall. All right. Effectively used training aids. This is an interesting one, and it's a super easy one to get as well. So what's the difference between a training aid and a prop?
How it's used?
Yeah. What would be a good training aid that you guys could have your class use every single class?
The My SSI app.
Yeah, their phones, right? Anybody ever seen anybody in their class that didn't have a phone? It's pretty rare. I've had it happen, but it's pretty rare.
My dad.
Yeah, so PowerPoint presentation it's active, it's interactive. We're utilizing that and it enhances the presentation, right? Easy ones for use of training aids. Okay, class, we're going to go and stand up. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you do this during your evaluation, Craig will be really impressed. You guys, I'm going to have us all stand up. We're going to go into the showroom and we're going to actually look at this equipment. And we're going to look at that and look at this and look at that. He's going to love that kind of stuff. If you have a presentation that involves a piece of gear you're doing, make sure you have that gear handy and you hand it around. Don't just show it to everybody. Let them hand it around. If you've got something that involves a dive computer, take a dive computer and pass it around the class. And this is the computer that we use, But make sure you're using a training aids effectively. Now, here's the only catch to that as well. And I'm going to go down just so you can see it. Let's see. Candidates should use training aids effectively to reinforce knowledge and understanding. Here's where it gets tricky. Candidate used more than one training aid effectively, and all training aids were related to the topic. So as you guys go through this, an easy one that everybody has access to is your My SSI app. Hey, let's go ahead and pull out our apps and let's go to the book and let's look this up. Hey, we're talking about nitrox today. I want to show you a great dive computer. Check this out. This Apex DSX is amazing. It not only is a great way to measure your dive, but it also comes with an oxygen analyzer so you can measure your own nitrox on a boat. Check it out. And then your presentation counts as one as well. Hey, let's go in the showroom and let's touch, taste, and feel the equipment, right? And so as we go through that process, training aids it's a super easy one, but it can also cripple you if you don't let it. So simple enough. I think if you just remember, we're going to use two separate things, no matter what. A piece of gear, my presentation, and the My SSI app, you're going to get a 3-point on that all day long. Nikki, what do you think we mean by motivated the class to participate?
Well, that we encourage students to answer questions during the practical application sessions, so we've got open discussions or workshops that we're getting them involved as in part of what we're teaching.
Absolutely. And the cool thing is one of the things you might notice, we talked about field trips a minute ago. What you'll see is as you build into these, motivate class to participate, and we went on a field trip into the shop. Well, the good news is you get effective use of training aids and you get a bonus of motivated class to participate in your field trip. So candidate effectively kept all the students motivated and involved during the entire presentation. Where some of the candidates and instructors get stuck on is they get tired of asking questions, and at some point they just go back into proctor mode and they just lecture. Ken, you ever you've been in college, right?
Yep.
You ever go to that 3-hour lecture class and you about fell asleep 3 times?
Yeah, those are fun.
Oh, absolutely. Or even worse, Ranger School, where they run you like a madman for 6 straight hours, and then they put you in a 100-degree classroom with low lights, and then they expect you to listen to an instructor that's going to talk about this is the navigation. How fun was that?
That was a great time.
Oh,
Great
good time. Yeah, absolutely. Hour and a half of sleep average per night for 6 straight weeks. Fantastic. So our goal is not to put our students to sleep, but it's to get them interactive and part of the process, right? It's like we're doing today. I'm asking you guys questions, but I'm doing it for twofold. One, I want you guys to come up with the answers, but it leads right into the second one. Ask questions to evaluate the student's knowledge. Candidate asked at least one question to each student that effectively evaluated each student's understanding of the main points. Based upon that criteria, guys, how am I doing?
Good.
Did I earn a 3 on that category?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So make sure, ask lots of questions, involve your candidates. We already talked about the summary. In my opinion, the summary is a slam dunk. There should be no reason you don't get a 9-pointer here overall. And then finally, the last of this is accomplish the objective. The candidate should provide sufficient information to meet the stated objective. Well, the objective of the second section was to go over in detail the academic presentation criteria and evaluation on how to create a presentation. It should be pretty straightforward. We've gone through everything but the last, and we're almost to that final point. So candidate provided sufficient information to meet the objective of the topic. The topic was that we're there. Accurate terminology, impressions, speaking ability, and mannerisms. All of you guys are fairly gregarious. Nikki, you love the chit chat and you love talking diving. Ken, you're clear and easily spoken and knowledgeable in your subject. Brent, then there's you. I'm kidding.
I don't know that I've got any of those then.
Brent, you're fun to talk to and you're knowledgeable and you've got a dry wit that's always a lot of fun. This should be pretty easy for all of you guys. Accurate terminology, talked with enthusiasm. Which one of us, any diver that you've known that likes diving and been diving for more than 6 months, doesn't talk with enthusiasm about their last dive to wherever, right?
Yep.
Brent, what's the last trip you took?
Fiji.
Tell me about your first dive in Fiji.
It was interesting. I mean, the whole trip was interesting, but not just different. You know, the sharks were nice. Not a lot of medium-sized fish. Not a lot of big fish, other than sharks. A lot of small fish. Maybe they all got eaten. I don't know. It was interesting.
What was the coolest fish you saw?
They kept showing us lionfish, and I was like, meh. I think the nudies that we saw were really cool. The sharks, that was fun. And then, you see the clownfish, and they're always in the, what is it? Anemones.
Uh-huh.
Every time you saw a clownfish, it was by an anemone and never outside of it. So that was interesting. But
right on.
Just the stuff that you don't see in the Caribbean.
Sure. Ken, what's the last trip you took?
Fiji.
Right on. What's the coolest thing you saw in Fiji?
The pregnant tiger shark.
Ooh, that's got to be cool. Was she pretty awesome?
Oh yeah, she was massive. She just kind of lumbered around too, and it was neat to see her move and interact and move in and out with the other sharks. And it was kind of striking because she was there with all these other sharks as they were being fed, but she wasn't really interested. She was probably to that point where she had eaten all she was going to eat before she started to pup. So she was still there because she was patterned to eating with the rest of the sharks as they'd been fed. But she wasn't interested in any of the food. So we didn't get to see her give birth, but she was close. She was really close.
Nice. Nikki, how about you? What was the on your last trip? What was the coolest thing you saw on your last trip?
I don't know. Does Yellowstone count?
Yellowstone absolutely counts.
Well, I'm sure that you've all seen our photos of the spires, and those are pretty cool.
I mean, it's exciting, guys. We're talking about the coolest thing we do, which is diving. If we could all make a living doing this, damn skip it, we'd be professional divers probably, right? So as we got to go through this, I mean, making sure candidate used accurate terminology and talk clearly with enthusiasm and professional composure. We enjoy what we do. We have fun. This is a neat sport. This should be in my mind, a slam dunk of 3 points right there. And then the final piece of overall, you'll be assigned a time limit to accomplish this. 5 to 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes, whatever it is, right? So as you prepare your presentations, candidates should use should conduct the topic within 20% of the allotted amount of time. Now, this one gets a little tricky, right? Candidate, if you get a 3 in this, candidate provided an adequate amount of information to cover the topic within the allotted time. But to have that marked down to a 2, candidate continually repeated themselves or included unnecessary information that caused the presentation to be too long. Didn't say anything about time. It just says they included unnecessary information and they repeated themselves. To get a 1, candidate did not cover enough information during the presentation to adequately cover the topic, which caused the presentation to be too short. To get a 0, candidate was ineffective with their use of time completely. They just went on and on and on and on and on, right? So while it does say candidates should conduct their topic within 20%, so for example, you have 10 minutes, you can use up to 12 minutes, right? But as long as your candidate provided an adequate amount of information to cover the topic without being too short and not covering pieces of it, or covering a lot of superfluous BS that they didn't need to really go into, you're going to be fine. And you should be able to get a 3. So the effective time description and the scoring system, in my mind, are a little out of sync on this overall. And so provided you don't go, I give you 10 minutes and you go 25 minutes, it's going to be more difficult for you not to get a 3 in this category. Now, after looking at this, guys, and looking at the overall scoring system that we just went through, how hard do you guys think it is to get a 36 now?
Pretty easy.
Yeah, it's not rocket science. It certainly gets a little bit more difficult at an AIT level and a lot more difficult at an ITS level. At an ITS level, I can miss 4 points in this, and where you tend to see people get miss points is they'll muddle the measurable terms with the value or the value with the outline, or they'll misspeak on something or just repeat themselves ineffectively, or they won't use 2 training aids. Those are the most common ones that I see. They also aren't good at bringing the motivation of the class in or ask questions continually through the process, right? I have seen people just completely blow restating the main points. So the good news for you guys is you need to score at least 5 points per category. Pretty darn close to your 36. And it's not hard to get. I mean, think about it. 2, 1, 2, 3, 0, 0, or 3, 3, 1, 1. It's not hard to get at least 5 points. Really, if you get 6 points per, you pretty much got it. So it's definitely not rocket science to get there. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So tomorrow I will email each of you 2 topics to present. What I'm looking for you guys to do is create a 5 to 10 minute presentation on the topic presented. You will be graded on this 5 to 10 minute topic by the scoring method, and this will be our initial point out. So it won't be a tremendous amount of detail. If you would like, I can send you over my PowerPoint based presentation, but I'd like to see you guys try to create your own. If you need mine, just ask, I will give it to you. And then we'll go from there. We also need to take a look at the calendar and figure out when we can all meet for those presentations. By the way, we're 75% done with tonight's class, just to give you kind of an expectation of time. We just have to go through 7.2 and we'll be good on that. When is everybody available for presentation night? I was thinking July 1st at 6 p.m.
Nope.
Nope. Okay. Second?
Second's probably doable.
Okay.
Yeah, I can do the second.
Nikki, are you available on the second?
Well, there's nothing on our calendar, so I would assume so.
Okay. ITC presentations. So for this first set of presentations, I'm not looking for a huge amount, right? I'm looking for 5 to 10 minutes just to get your feet wet on two different presentations. Now, here's where it gets a little tricky for you guys, is that I will also expect that you will each have a printed version, at least 4 copies of the evaluation sheet, as well as the criteria handy. As when each of you presents, the other 2 of you will also be scoring that presentation. Fair enough? Because I want you guys to understand how the scoring works. Because as we all know, if you know how to make score points, it makes it a lot easier to score points in a game, right? And if you know the secrets and the easy places to score points, you're going to score those points. So the more you understand about this process, the better off your life will be. So be prepared that you don't just get to tune out while the other 2 give their presentations.
What time are we doing this?
6 o'clock on Tuesday, the 2nd, and I'll send out a calendar invite on that as well.
And where are we doing it?
Right here.
Okay.
We'll just do it digitally. It seems like everybody's fairly savvy digitally.
It took me a minute. I had to download Zoom, or I download whatever it is, Google Chrome. Yeah.
Yep, you got to use Chrome for this. So we'll do this via Chrome. The same thing. I'll send out a new link with this as well. And you're welcome to go back. I will send you guys the link to tonight's class as well, so you'll be able to go back, and if you had questions on that, or you can go through that, or you can call me, text me, write me, email me, or catch me in the shop, which I tend to spend a lot of time in the shop. So, and we'll discuss it, and I'll answer any questions that you might have. I want to make sure I'm available for you. But again, I'd like you guys to each have 4 printed forms, evaluation forms printed off, and with a pen and paper ready to go. Because like I said, if you understand how the scoring system works, it will make your life substantially easier. Any questions on that?
Cool.
Ken, what's one thing that you learned about out of this last section that we just talked about?
You broke up there. Say that again.
I said, what's the main thing you picked up out of the academic training evaluation form?
Just the criteria. I mean, how it all kind of plays together.
What was the easiest section you think for you to get a good score on?
Probably the knowledge and understanding.
Absolutely. I would hope you guys all say that it's the introduction and the summary. For me, at least, those are like a guaranteed 9 points. If I get both those sections, and the good news is I only have to really do it once. I create 1 slide for objectives, 1 slide for value, 1 slide for main points, and then when I get done and I've got those created, I copy and paste those at the end of my presentation, and I just change the tense. For the end, I just say, today we accomplished the objectives of this. Today the main points we talked about were this, and then today the value of this was for you. If you do that's like 18 points, like that. It's a crazy easy one. Overall, I can tell you guys, if you follow this format and when you're creating your presentation, you make sure to always have the criteria training form evaluation form handy, and just line it out. Don't try and lend to your own understanding. Use the form. Did I catch this? Put your careful check. Did I do this? Check, 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 and check through it just like a flight checklist. My last group of ITC, there was 3 of them. None of them got below 50 on any presentation, not once, for their instructor evaluation. Now in the ITC, the lowest score we saw was a 40 for the ITC. So that is those are the numbers to beat if you're competitive. I'm competitive, so I'd love to see this class have the lowest, have you guys end up with having the lowest score of 45 instead of 40. So I think you guys can do it. I'm happy to help through that process. So, all right. So section 7.2 of the open water diver form. By the way, Ken, I gave you some bad information today, and I wanted to correct that as well. You asked me what the overall time suggested for the instructor trainer course was, and I believe I told you 40 hours. That was in error. And I'm always a big enough man to admit when I'm incorrect. 70 to 80 hours is what it's suggested. So I apologize for miscommunicating that. I led to my own understanding, not following and checking and saying, hey, let's look that up in the standards. And so there's where I got my violation there. So I'm terribly sorry.
No problem.
All right. So 7.2, the lesson objectives today are going to be describe each certification option for open water diver program. We're going to describe how to upgrade to open water diver from referral diver, indoor diver, and scuba diver. And we're going to describe the upgrade process from junior diver certification. So, Brent, what is a referral diver?
If I were to take open water with Idaho Dive Pirates, and I got all through the class in the pool, but did not do the open water portion, I could go to, say, the Caribbean if I was taking a trip and get with an SSI shop at somewhere down there and finish up my open water portion with them, and that would be a referral diver.
That is exactly right. So, picking on Brent again, what are the requirements to complete the certification for a referral diver?
I think you have to, there's some forms or something you send, or you get signed off. The training record maybe goes with you to the other place, or it gets sent to them. But then when they finish it, pass it off, and then it wouldn't be Idaho Dive Pirates student per se. It would be the other shops.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and go to the standards and let's take a look and see what the actual standards are for referral diver. What are the requirements for completion? Whoever gets there, let's go ahead and let me know where you found that.
I'm there, and so for this one, I've got it. It's in the course material for instructor.
Okay.
So the requirements: before you can issue a referral card, your students must complete all their academic training, including the final exam, their water fitness evaluation test, and their pool confined water training. By completing the pool confined water training and verifying that they can perform all the skills listed in the pool confined water session, they keep putting that in there. That's tongue twister. Water session in the instructor manual for open water diver program, you prove that they have a minimum amount of training to dive safely in a pool confined water environment at depths shallower than 5 meters.
Absolutely. So they're doing everything but the open water is what I get from that.
Yep.
That's perfect, including the fitness evaluation. And Brent, you're exactly right. And the goal is to get them to that point before open water, because we get that student that doesn't want to do Belmont, which we all know we can't blame anybody for not wanting to do Belmont, or they don't want to do Ryrie. Right?
I wouldn't want to do Ryrie over Belmont, but that's just me.
I would do Ryrie over Belmont too. But there's people who are like, I don't want to be in cold water. It's 65 degrees. I want to do 85 degrees. And they want to do that on their vacation. That's fine. We can certainly help them with that. Right. So Nikki, who would be an ideal person that we would teach the referral diver program to?
Well, potentially somebody who's landlocked or somebody who's traveling and the time frame is such that they can complete the open water dives with us.
Absolutely. So that's what we're looking for, somebody like that. Now, is there advantage to trying to move them into a full open water diver prior to a trip?
Absolutely. Then they don't have to worry about finishing any of the skills while they're out enjoying their vacation. They can just go out and have a dive.
Absolutely. So, Brent, what does it take to upgrade from a referral diver to an open water diver?
Students with referral dive card simply need to complete their open water training dives within 6 months of their last in-water training session. If it has been longer than 6 months, use a SCUBA skills update to review and refresh the student's abilities, then complete their training. If more than 12 months has elapsed, the student must retake the open water final exam.
Absolutely. Easy enough. So there is a certification. So you can get a credit for a certification for a referral diver. And that's exactly what will show up on your in your pro section, is that you did X amount of referral divers. Or you'll get, if you do an open water diver, you'll get, that's for the whole course. So you can get either certification, and Idaho Dive Pirates will absolutely get the credit for the referral diver or a full open water diver. So they can get, or they can get partial credit for doing a referral diver and taking it to open water. So either way, they still the opportunity to get that. So be aware that just because we lose them as and they move their way out, they're still our student. They're hopefully going to come back to us as well. How about an indoor diver? What's an indoor diver, Nikki?
An indoor diver is a student who has completed the training necessary to dive autonomously with an equally or more qualified buddy in environments, including aquariums and purpose-built artificial diving facilities to depths equivalent to their training.
What's an example of an indoor diving facility?
The Atlanta Aquarium.
Absolutely. The Denver Aquarium is another one. Absolutely. Deep Spot in Poland. All these are indoor diving facilities. So what does it take to change from being an indoor diver to an open water diver?
To upgrade to an open water diver certification, they must complete 2 additional open water training dives on scuba and skills outlined in the open water training dives 1 through 4 of the instructor manual for open water diver in the open water environment.
Absolutely. So if we get somebody that, like, for example, in Denver's a very popular place to get certified as an open water because a lot of people take trips out of there. But the challenge is, in the wintertime, there's very, very few places to go do an actual open water certification. They don't have the luxury of Belmont, for example, to go down to. So they're limited. So they do a lot at the Denver Aquarium for that. So all they need to do to become a full open water diver, hit up with a resort, do all the skills for 2 dives. So 1 day, 2 dives, show some skills, you're an open water diver. Make sense? How about scuba diver? What is a scuba diver? Ken, how about you?
Scuba Diver Program is an abbreviated version of the open water program. Students who earn this certification can only dive under the direct supervision of a professional at depths shallower than 12 meters. This certification is usually issued to students who do not have the time to complete the open water diver program, like students visiting a resort for vacation. If you have students who struggle with training requirements of the open water diver program, you can also use the scuba diver certification as an alternative.
Perfect. That's exactly the information that we're looking for.
Listen, I have this in Patty, and I got it on a cruise ship. And the only difference between this and the open water course I went through was the dive tables. And I think the instructor I had on that cruise ship was probably harder than any other instructor I've seen or been around. I mean, he had us swim the length of the pool without the air, breathing, exhaling the whole way. And if the bubbles stopped, you failed. If you didn't make it, you failed. If you came up, you failed. And so if you didn't know how to kick your fins and you bicycled, you failed. That took out half the class.
So Brent, in the SSI version of the scuba diver, what are the minimum requirements for completion?
Before you can issue scuba diver card, your students must be able to complete the first 3 academic training sessions, the final exam, the first 3 pool confined water sessions, and the first 2 open water training dives, including the skill evaluations outlined in the instructor manual.
How do they upgrade from that to a full open water diver?
You don't have the 2 days, the other 2 dives of your second open water, and 1 academic training session. Is that right? So the first 3 when there's 4.
What's this? What does the standard say to upgrade? So let's go to the standards on that and let's pull up scuba diver and look at the upgrade portion of that.
Complete the remaining academic training, in-water training, final exam, and skill evaluations as outlined in the instructor manual.
Yep, absolutely. A junior diver certification.
Really.
It's not a lot. It's absolutely not a lot.
And the funny thing, I thought when I got my card, it said I could go to 40 feet with an instructor. You know, a try scuba is the same thing.
It pretty much is.
So, but this makes it seem like there's a different final exam for an open water diver versus a scuba diver, because they have to complete the open water diver final exam with a passing score of at least 80%, but they've already taken the scuba diver final exam.
There is a different exam. There is a scuba diver final exam. You're absolutely right on that, because we're not able to give them a final exam for sections 4 through 6 if they haven't read sections 4 through 6. It's not fair to hold them to that standard. So there is a scuba diver test final exam. It is online now as well, by the way, like everything else. Every test now is available online overall. They have to score at 80% or better. Now, that's one thing to be aware of is all recreational and I should say not recreational, but all non-professional classes, their students have to be able to pass the final exam with an 80% or better overall. And there's every course that you teach should have a final examination. There are a few examples where they don't, but SSI has promised up and down that those are coming. For example, there is not currently for ice diving a final exam available for that. I've created my own. Now, here's a good question for you guys. If there's not a final exam available, does that mean you don't have to give them a final exam?
Nope, you get to create your own.
Flexibility rule, unfortunately. Now, the good news is like Scooter, for example, Scooter and DPV, for years, they did not have instructor materials on that or a final exam. SSI finally came out, and now there is a Scooter final exam and availability. Altitude does have a final exam. It's very bad, but that's supposed to be being redone here shortly as well. So by the end of the year, we're supposed to have a new course for altitude and potentially ice. So we'll see if they actually follow through though. I don't know. They did do the DPV one is very good if you haven't taken it. It was very enjoyable. So how about a junior diver certification? Just kind of move on from this. What is the minimum age for a junior entry-level dive certification?
For open water or for any dive?
For any dive. For them to go scuba diving in open water in any way, shape, or form, what's the minimum age?
10.
10, absolutely. So junior diver certifications are automatically upgraded to complete program certification when the student turns 15 years old. Most specialty programs allow junior diver certifications for the students under the age of 15. Where would that be? What's the minimum age to take nitrox, for example?
I would say 15 based on this, but
Go to the standards.
10.
Yeah, absolutely. How about deep?
15.
Yeah. So there are some that we want to make sure we're keeping our kids safe. They have to have a certain minimum age certification, but the way we'll know this, the way we make sure we don't violate the standards and don't raise our QMS manager in the shops and make her ticked off at us, is go to the standards. Look it up before you start teaching the class. Go to the standards. Find out what the standards are, and make sure that you're not violating that. So, as an open water instructor, what are my ratios? How does that work? Can I teach 16 students at one time?
With some.
I can teach 16 students.
How many assistants do you have?
You tell me. Is there a time where I can teach 16 people? For the ratios.
1 to 8, 2 to 10, 3 to 12.
Yep. The max amount of students I can teach at one time is 12. And that's with 2 certified assistants. So we need to be aware every class and every that we teach as well, we need to make sure we're making sure to stay within the standards of care for this as well. Now we're starting to talk about junior divers. What's the maximum instructor to student ratio for a junior diver if I have all junior divers?
1 to 4.
I'll be back. I'm trying to get in the door.
Sure. Now, if they're all 10 years old, how many students can I do?
Maybe 2.
Sorry, so I did something with trying to search my standards, and now I can't get it out of find mode.
I can help with that. How about this right there?
2.
So if they're all 10 years old, I can only do 2. No more than 2 participants per instructor or certified assistant may be under the age of 12. And none of the remaining participants may be under the age of 15. So I can have two 10-year-olds in my class.
Your class of 8 or 4? Student to instructor ratio is 4 to 1.
Yep.
So 2 of those can be under the age of 12.
Correct. Correct. You're reading that exactly right. So be aware there's absolutely clear standards on this, and making sure understand what those ratios are is critical. The number one, I said this at the beginning of the class, but the number one QMS violations are caused by lack of a student or instructor going to the standards. So standards. Now, guys, there's another certification option out there. If somebody comes to us, so for example, they come to us from the Navy, and they went through combat diver training. Did we issue them an open water card?
Say that again?
So there's another type of certification we can provide. If somebody comes to us from the Navy and they went through combat diver school, can we issue them an open water card?
Yes.
If you have dove with them enough to know that they know what they're doing.
So let's go to that. Let's go to standards on experienced diver tests. That's what we're looking for. What does it take for us to give them an open water card?
They complete the final exam, 1 pool session, the student fitness evaluation, 2 open water training dives, and all skills from open water training dives 1 through 4.
Yep. So that's what we're looking for. We want to make sure, and I can tell you from personal experience, we just had this happen at the Florida shop, that a diver came in. I got certified in 1993 with the U.S. And I was also certified while I was in the at that time with NACA as well. Can we just take that and his word and say? Because the funny thing is we looked up, he was not certified with NACA. There was no record of him ever. Okay. We asked for proof. They asked for proof of military experience. Oh, I lost it all. Sure you did. Yeah.
Well, then I would say that you go the route of either being able to, 1, hey, let's go do a pool session and assess the skills and things, or when was the date of your last dive, and be able to go from there. I mean, if you were certified in 1992, there's a lot of things that have changed with gear, and depending upon the situation, they may benefit from an abbreviated class of more of a like scuba skills update.
Yep. So in the experienced diver test, per the standards, the diver must provide proof of prior diving experience. They must register the diver for the open water diver program and complete the final exam at least 1 pool confined water session and at least 2 open water training dives. All the skills from the instructor manual for the open water diver program must be evaluated in both pool and confined open water environments prior to certification. Now, here's one of those interesting things. This is one of the things standards have changed. In, let's see, year was this? Give me a moment. The standards for 2023 for this said if they've lost proof of their certification. In 2024, requires proof. The diver must provide proof of prior diving experience. So the standards change. Be aware that they've got to do certain things in order to get through this process. Make sense? So, Ken, your question for the day is: an indoor diver must complete how many or what to upgrade to an open water diver certification? You may look the answer up if you'd like.
I'm actually trying, and it is just buffering on my other side here. Is it in this book?
It is.
Yeah. Let's see.
An indoor diver must complete what to upgrade to an open water diver certification? Give you a hint. There's 2 parts of this of that.
Yeah. And let's just again. Oh, here we go. It took me all the way back. It's froze again. Come on.
2 new notifications.
Was somebody just saying something? I heard noise, but you guys there?
We are here. I can hear you. Benjamin, you are on mute.
Letter has arrived.
Yeah, I know. The stupid Alexa decided she wanted to keep talking. She wouldn't shut up.
Okay, it's opening back up.
There we go. So an indoor diver must complete what to upgrade to an open water diver certification?
Getting there. This is just, just a second. Indoor diver. There we go. Okay. Students with the indoor diver certification have already demonstrated most of the requirements for open water diver certification. To upgrade an indoor diver certification to open water diver certification, the student must complete 2 more open water training dives in SCUBA on SCUBA in an actual open water training environment. During these dives, you must evaluate the student's abilities to complete all of the skills listed in the instructor manual for open water training dives 1 through 4.
Exactly. So 2 more dives and all the skills. Brett? I'm sorry, Brent. A referral diver must complete blank to upgrade to an open water diver certification.
Complete their open water training dives within 6 months of their last in-water training session. If it has been longer than 6 months, use SCUBA Skills Update to review and refresh students' abilities, then complete their training. If more than 12 months, then you start over.
Yep. So they need to complete all the open water training dives and the skills evaluations.
Yep.
Nikki, where can you find more information on the standards requirements for the scuba diver program?
Probably in the recreational training standards book, guide, manual, whatever you
Will it
want
be
to
in
call it.
the open water standards, diver standards, the dive program standards, the open water instructor standards, or the general training standards?
Whoa, dude, you need like a slide that has A, B, C, D, because you just rattled off one too many things and my head stopped at like the first one.
I can do that. That's not a problem. Give me a moment. Screen share, window. It's that one. Share. There we go. Where can you find more information on the standard requirements for the scuba diver program?
And the open water diver standards?
Are you asking me or telling me?
Telling you. Nope, that was not correct.
In the dive program standards. All right, Ken, back to you. The indoor program may be conducted in blank as outlined in the SSI training standards.
It may be conducted in what?
The indoor program
Oh, there it is.
completed in blank.
Here we go. As outlined in the instructor manual. That's not one of the options. Let's see. All it says is indoor diving facility. So that's got it. So the second one, it's got to be an indoor diving facility.
Yep. All right. Who am I up to? Brent? Brent, a scuba diver must complete blank to upgrade to an open water diver certification.
remaining academic and pool confined, but it doesn't say, it says all. Or sorry, in-water training. They must complete remaining academic training, in-water training, final exam, and skill evaluations. Requirements for completion. Is it 2 or is it 4? It's that one. It's A.
So in the standards, you want to go to the
It's
scuba
A,
diver section.
because they've already done 2 to get the scuba diver. It's the other 2.
And you want to go to upgrades.
Yeah, it did, and it's not clear.
Sure.
Well, the first 2 open water training dives.
Can we phone a friend?
So you gotta do the other 2. So it is A. If you done 2, then you have 2 left.
Let's see.
But
The
as a
standards
scuba diver, they haven't completed all of the academic sessions, so they have to complete the academic sessions and the pool sessions.
So complete the remaining and required academic sessions 4 through 6. Complete the open water final exam with an 80%. Complete 3 additional pool confined water sessions and the skills evaluation for sessions 4 through 6. And complete 2 additional open water training dives. Remember, to do this, they're going to go through do sessions 1 through 3 and 2 open water dives.
Right, to get to scuba diver.
Yep.
Then to upgrade, they're going to do the rest and the 2 remaining
Exactly.
open water. So it's the first one.
Yeah, but the big thing is I want you to know how to find that in the standards.
Well, I can't find this page on my book. I can find the instructor training course, which is what I was reading through.
Yep,
But
go to
the
the
other scuba
so go to your standards.
Scuba training standards and procedures. Is that the right one?
So you're going to go to general to standards. The third section in standards is entry level programs, and the fourth one down in entry level programs is, or I'm sorry, scuba diver. Yeah, I'm sorry. The third one down in the standards is scuba diver. When we scroll to the bottom of scuba diver, we have every one of them has this section called upgrades. So that's what we're looking for is at the bottom of scuba diver, look for upgrades.
Okay. Yep, I got it.
Yeah, the only one that won't have upgrades is going to be open water diver, right? Because that's what you're trying to get to because you're in entry level programs. All right, sharing. All right, Nikki, students must complete blank from the open water diver program to receive the referral diver certification. Make that a little bigger for you. Like the referral diver program. Nikki, you're on mute.
Sorry, the TAP one. They have to complete all the academic and all the pool sessions.
Survey says correct. All right. Again, referral divers may dive in blank.
Oops. Referral divers. Bum, bum, bum.
And where I would look for this one in the standards would be in entry-level programs. Again, referral diver, and I'd look at certification. What can they do once they're certified?
Let's see. With the academic. Valuability. Let's see.
Here's where I'm at. Ken, I'm in entry-level programs referral diver.
Yeah.
And I'm going to scroll down here a little bit. Certifications.
Pong. Equal or more qualified buddy. There we go. So equal or more qualified buddy. Open water environments. See, so it didn't say 12 meters that I saw. So it would have to be the second one. It would have to be any open water environment with a certified buddy.
Let's go back to standards. And certified referral divers may dive autonomously with an equally or more qualified buddy in a pool environment equal to the equivalent of their training.
I missed pool environment.
Yep, it's an easy one to miss.
Yep.
Remember, they haven't done anything open water at this point. They've only done pool.
Okay.
Survey says,
Yep.
all right. Last question, who gets it? Brent, is it your turn?
Sure.
Which academic sessions, training sessions, must be completed for the scuba diver certification?
One through three.
All right, survey says, come on, here we go. Says you're right. Good job. All right, guys, we went through a lot tonight. What did you guys pick up from this section about the different types of divers?
What I picked up is I need to have those breakdowns for the different not specialties, but those lower level
Entry level certifications.
Entry level certifications. There you go. Entry level certifications. Need to have those listed out because there's a lot of subtlety to them, where there's a subtle difference between one to the other.
Yep.
That's not even something I would have memorized in any kind of short term. That's
Because why
something
would you need to?
Yeah. Right. That's Ashley's problem. But yeah, having that written down, that's definitely something that would be helpful.
This is one of the 2 sections that I think trips up more new instructors than any of the other sections combined. I mean, the rest of it's pretty straightforward. You know, first you become an open water instructor, then you become what's after open water instructor? Advanced open water instructor, right?
Yeah.
And then after that is dive master instructor. Then is so a lot of that kind of stuff's pretty basic stuff, and I can find it really quickly, really easily in the standards. You know, what's the maximum partial pressure for nitrox? We should all know that's right. It's what, Brent?
I don't remember.
1.4, right? That's the maximum. Oh, the max of 1.6 for accelerated decompression. So as we got to go through this, a lot of the stuff is pretty basic stuff, easy to remember. This section right here trips up, in my opinion, more instructors than any other section that we'll go through. So yes, go through, study this, but do not lean on your own understanding. The test that you will take with me will be open book on standards. The test you'll take with Craig on an instructor evaluation will be open book standards. Don't be afraid to, in fact, I encourage you, even if you are 100% sure of the answer, just verify it, right? You know, and there's a lot of little things that they'll try and trip you up on. One of the things in your guys, for example, the one that ticked me off the most was throughout the ITC, it talks about what are the 2 ways to become a specialty instructor in a specialty. It talks about it a lot. What are the 2 ways? 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 When you take the instructor evaluation, the question changes to what are the 3 ways? So they'll give you the same answer and you'll know the answer, but you're like, oh, because they'll word it slightly different. So just go to the standards. It's just easier, right? That answer is not all that complicated, right? Co-teach instructor seminar or substantiated experience, right? So, for example, with you, Ken, being a navigation instructor, you didn't need to take an instructor course, so you didn't need to co-teach it. We could prove it. Said, I bet you he knows how to use a compass, right? For love of God, I hope you do, right? So we didn't need to put you through an instructor course on that. As we got to go through that. So, trivia question for you: instructor trainer seminars. Who can conduct an instructor trainer seminar? Or instructor specialty seminar. Sorry.
I would be guessing
that is certified in it and has at least 5 certifications in that specialty.
What level? What was the first part of it, Nick?
That you are certified as an instructor within that specialty and have 5 certifications from students certified, at least 5 students within that specialty.
Okay, and there's one more part to that.
Did you ask what level of an instructor?
Who can teach a specialty seminar?
I would say,
go ahead.
Probably at least an assistant instructor trainer or an instructor trainer.
Correct. Now, is there a limit to the courses that an assistant instructor trainer can give a seminar on versus an instructor trainer? Can an instructor trainer or assistant instructor trainer teach any specialty he's as a course, a seminar that he's certified in?
No.
Okay. What's the limit? What's the difference between an instructor trainer and assistant instructor trainer?
Then assistant instructor trainer should only be able to perform instructor seminars for assistants for classes that an assistant instructor can teach.
Correct. Interesting distinction, but it's an easy one to miss. that as an assistant instructor trainer, you can certainly do specialty instructor seminars, but they have to be appropriate to be able to be taught by an assistant instructor. As an assistant instructor trainer, you can teach assistant instructors and below. As an instructor trainer, you can teach instructors and below. So interesting little bit of trivia. I gave you guys some homework last week. Did anybody have the chance to finish that homework and find SSI's philosophy on teaching past the primary?
Yeah.
Where did you find it?
It is on, so in SSI, in the app, there's a section that focuses on the diver diamond. And in there, where is it? It was very similar to Simple Stupid, or at least that's kind of.
So let's start with, is it in the general training standards, the experience programs, the entry-level programs, the continuing education? Where would I find that if I were to go to find the philosophy of that?
It's in the general training standards.
Okay. All right. We're in general training standards. Is it going to be an administration, professional duties, equipment definition, conducting SSI programs, or water fitness evaluation?
Conducting SSI programs.
Okay.
Comfort petition.
But I gotta open the standards back up.
What's that?
Give me just a second.
So we're conducting the programs, SSI in water training philosophy, rationale for passing the primary air source.
Where did you go?
This is a test question too. That's why I go over it. They give us their rationale on two specific things. Rationale for passing the primary air source, air sharing during professional level training, as well as diver position. But here's where you find it is in general training standards, conducting programs. But it makes sense. If you think about it for a moment, where would we find the philosophy for that? In water teaching philosophy would be under conducting the program. Why is the why, right? So that was the homework. That's where it's at. I encourage you guys to go through and read this section. It's not very long, but it's there's going to be test questions over that you'll need to understand and be prepared for. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Well, guys, we talked about a lot tonight. We went through why divers take the courses that they're taking. We went through the overall how to make a presentation and where we get those great scores, where we're gonna get over 50s on every single presentation we do. We also went through all the criteria for that as well to understand that in key point. And then finally, we went through and it got a clear understanding why it's a good idea to use standards to understand the different programs overall as well. There's a lot of it in there. There's a lot of nuances that get really tough, right?
That there is.
Absolutely. So the value to you is really what I'm trying to get through to you guys in this process is don't lean to your understanding, don't be afraid to go to the standards. I've been studying this stuff for a long time and living in this world, and I will be the first to tell you that I still have a tough time sometimes in remembering some of this stuff as well. So that's what I would encourage you guys to do on a regular basis is make sure that you're going through and you're knowing how to find the standards, where it's at in the standards, And then the most important thing about anything is use the standards. Make sense?
Yep.
So now you guys are able to just, you got the intent and understanding behind the referral diver, indoor, and scuba diver programs and how to complete them, as well as how to find upgrades to the open water program from each of those programs, like referral diver, indoor diver, and scuba diver. And now you also understand what are the requirements for becoming and upgrading out of a junior diver, as well as what are the requirements for an open water program. Again, the value to you is as students come into the shop, now you'll know what bucket to place them in and how each one of these programs could benefit them as well. Make sense?
Yep.
Brent, what's something you learned tonight?
There's a lot of stuff in there that I don't know.
It's
It's overwhelming.
the standards are a big book, that's for sure. It's easy to get a little lost in it, but
And the search function sucks.
it can.
Yeah, it's terrible.
It's not worth using. So
Mhm.
that's just my opinion.
Yeah, it takes a bit to get used to it, that's for sure. I'll be honest with you guys. When I did my open water instructor, my assistant instructor trainer, and my instructor trainer seminar, all three of those, I had a downloaded copy of the standards in PDF. I'm more comfortable working with a PDF than I was the online. I was also worried that maybe I'd have internet issues, and I didn't want to have to worry about internet issues. So I just downloaded a PDF copy of the latest standards onto my computer desktop. So I just had it. And the PDF searches pretty easily. In fact, even for this, finding philosophy, I just typed in philosophy. There's philosophy in the standards is mentioned 6 times. So that's what I did. It's certainly you're welcome to do that as well. Standards are absolutely welcomed and pretty much required through your instructor evaluation as well. So what's something else you learned, Brent?
I don't know.
No worries. We'll come back to you. I'll let you think about it. Nikki, what's something you learned tonight?
I had one, and I don't remember what it was. Sorry.
Ken, you want to try one?
Let's see. Actually, I learned how just kind of easy this stuff is. I mean, if you just follow the outline, it's very repetitive. Everything comes back to the exact same things. I mean, and the way who made this book?
Gary Boyer. He was the IT that originally did my ITC, and he's the one that helped me with the ITC for the last group.
Okay, so the way this is set up is brilliant because everything is done exactly the same way, and it's so simple. And then when you take that with the teaching evaluation form that we started off with, and then you go into all the different beginner programs that we were talking about today, it all follows the same stuff, and it logically kind of folds back on itself.
Absolutely. Yeah, and just if you ever need to get this digitally, and which you should, you can go into courses and skills. Everything that is in there was copied out of skills. And the good news is, if you go to the skills, you also get videos.
Is that the skills update? So I would say that would be I guess one of the lessons that I learned. Well, or observations, I guess. I think that the shop underutilizes some of the other programs, right? Like I think sometimes we have students who come through and struggle to finish open water for whatever reason. We've got a friend of ours who came in, did I think 2 pool sessions and was like, I'm done. Well, let's certify her to dive in an indoor environment. Let's not try to stress her out with going into a outdoor open water environment. Utilize some of those other functions that we have to our benefit. The other thing that I would say is just that it's always an open book. And it's probably better to have it always be an open book and always refer back to the latest standard published than try to remember.
Absolutely. Don't rely on your own understanding. I've said that numerous times. By the way, this is just on SSI. It's not the Scuba Skills update. It's a Scuba Skills review. That's where you want to go. And if you click on that, what you'll find is that everything that's in that book is online available for you as well. And there's videos. So anything you want to know, here's how to do a safety stop, a sac rate check, a no mask swim, everything you need that's in that book. If you need to see a video on how to do it, remove and replace the scuba unit underwater, boom, here it is right here. You can go through and watch how to do it. And you'll even see the hand and arm signals as well. So it's exactly like Ken said. It's all folds over itself. It's all builds on itself. Makes it nice and easy. Well, guys, I hope you're enjoying this course, right? Go ahead, Ken. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to just fall back onto what Nikki said. You know, I've team taught with Brett many, many times, and I always get saddled with the students who need a little extra help. And he never even brought this up, that point that you made about using some of these other programs with some people, because quite frankly, there are some people who will probably never be safe to the point where they could be an open water diver, but there's a lot of these other options for them where they can get in and enjoy the sport and maybe, you know, get comfortable someday to where they can do that. So, yeah, I'm going to take that lesson, especially when I teach with Brett.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes we allow our pride to get in the way as well. We as open water instructors say, okay, they signed up for open water. I've got to get them all the way through open water to open water diver. And we get this, if I don't get them through to this point, I've failed, right? So far, I can honestly say in all the open water divers that I've done at this point, I've only had 2 not make it through all the way from beginning to end. And there's probably a few that I probably worked a little heavier on to get to them there, and it may not have been appropriate. It may have been more appropriate to keep them at a different level.
So I know you do this with your XR class because you can register them for the decompression procedures or whatever it is, and then you can also register them for XR. So you can have kind of that stop point, certify them for a decompression diver. Can you take a diver that was registered for an open water class and then give them just a scuba certification, or is it a separate registration and different books that
you can absolutely stop them? In fact, that's a good point to bring up. Let's look at the new, I'm going to download the new open water form real quick and let's take a look at it. So let me go to downloads. I'm just going to show you where I'm at and one of the cool new things that SSI has done. So in your download section, I just went to the main page to download. That's all I've done so far. Up here, the training record generator, open water diver. We're going to create a training record. You guys, once you finish this course, should have access to this. And so you can, do I want the registration form on there? No, I don't want the registration. SCUBA responsible diver code. I'm gonna skip that one too. The medical diver questionnaire, I can skip that. The assumption of risk, I can put that on, put it not on there. I can put the youth waiver on there, or just put the open water diver portion on there. And I can add the privacy policy out there as well. Other things I can add on there as well. Here's all the other things I can add on there. For example, if they did an ecology program, I can add ecology in there, and it'll make one record for me. So I can add all these, but right now let's just stick with just open water diver form so we can take a look at that. So as we look at this, here's all the things we can sign off for, but check this out. Entry-level scuba referral diver form is right on here. Scuba diver completion form. Upgrade from scuba diver to open water diver. Indoor diver completion. Upgrade from directions from indoor diver to open water diver. So you can absolutely stop them and sign them. Instead of signing off as a complete entry-level open water diver, you can say, okay, you made this, this, and this. Let's go to page 2, and I will sign you off as a referral diver. I will sign you off as a scuba diver or an indoor diver. So I've got all this right here where I can, this is what I've said I've done. and I can go through and say, okay, you've done academic sessions 1 through 3, pool confined sessions 1 through 3, open water training dives 1 and 2, and you took the scuba diver final exam. The student has met all the qualifications or requirements for certification in the SSI program. The student understands that this is not an open water diver certification. They may dive under direct supervision of a dive professional in environments equivalent to their training and to depths shallower than 12 meters. So you can stop them wherever you want. And that's a great point, Nikki, to bring up, because it's absolutely correct. Is it appropriate to take some divers? I mean, Megan Loveland comes to mind, and she's great, she's sweet, but her thought of going into open water was just not appropriate. Would it have been better to stop her as just a scuba diver? Probably. You know, could we just stop her there and just done something like that and done a little less stress and then let her work into it? Most likely, right? But it was too stressful for her. She just wasn't ready for that. So as we got to go through that, you can absolutely stop and use other programs to get them to a stopping point so they're able to work and stay with that level until they're ready to move to the next level. You know, I think about it a lot like now from the classified diver ideas. We get somebody in that's a classified level 1. Does that mean they'll always be a classified 1?
Nope.
No, not even close. I always go over to Dan Metcalf, right? He's a TA paraplegic and started off as a classified 1, and now he's an open water instructor as a TA paraplegic. That guy's a stud, right? So same thing with this. There's always levels, and that's the idea: is continuing education, getting them involved, getting them moving forward, getting them created into this program, and bringing them up at their pace, not our pace. I like to say in my open water classes that when we do a skill, I've done this skill 1,000 times. I'm pretty good at it by now. This will be your first time. So we'll go at your pace, not my pace. If we go too fast, put up the stop sign and tell me, slow down. I'm happy to do so. In the open water mass drill, the mass drill partial flood or full flood, I tell them, if it takes you 1 breath to get it done, great, you're a superstar, you passed. If it takes you 5 breaths to get it done, congratulations, you're a superstar, you passed. If it takes you 10 breaths to get it accomplished, congratulations, you're a superstar, you passed, but we might have a little bit of talk about it. Take it at their pace. Not everybody learns as fast as Ken. I mean, we can't all be superstars. That's why he has no hair, because his brain is just too hot, right? It's always moving. It burnt the hair off. So there you go. That's why I have lots of hair, because I don't think a lot, right? But so we go through that. So I'm psyched with you guys. I'm looking forward to you guys' presentations. I'll have assignments out for you tomorrow. They will be simple subjects for you, and time limit is going to be 10 minutes. So any questions that I can answer at this point? So, awesome. Good job, guys. I'll have this online for you tomorrow, and I'll include the link to this recording for you guys tomorrow as well, if that works out for you.
Yep.
Sure.
Have a great evening. It's 8:18. Have fun.
All right. See you guys.
Bye.